So let's continue with our lesson this week at Writing for Success as we evaluate body paragraph and our conclusion for our writing task and our research report on Greek mythology. But before we do that, let's take a look at two examples for locating a topic as well as possibly locating a main idea. And so what I'll do is my strong suggestion is that you take a moment, pause the recording, read, choose an answer, and then I'll come back and give the answer. So here's the first. So from this passage, it seems safe to conclude that the English A, B, C, or D. If you guess C, then you are accurate. Here's one more example. This passage is mainly about A, B, C, or D. If you guess C, then I would agree with you again. So great job if you were able to get these accurately. If not, go back and review them to be able to see possibly what the answer was, what you believed it was, and what the difference is between the two. So again, let's get back into not necessarily our essay, but our research report on Greek mythology. So we've researched, generated ideas, outlined, and began writing about the topic of Greek mythology. Students have created a strong thesis statement, and you've even improved that. You've written your introduction paragraph with a grabber sentence, background information, and then you put that thesis statement in there. So here's my introduction paragraph that I have, just to kind of recap. Then, in our last lesson, we wrote our point or topic sentence. So you should have just carried that over into this particular lesson so that you can be able to use that as we write our body paragraph. So the topic, main idea, viewpoint, and then we came up with Olympian gods are highly recognized, of which Zeus and Hera are some of the most famous gods of Greek mythology. So let's talk about the structure of a body paragraph. The function of the body paragraph is to develop the information that supports the topic sentence and the thesis. Now remember, we can't forget about the thesis. It's what we said our whole essay was about. To convince the reader that the thesis is valid, body paragraphs begin with their own point, the topic sentence. Well, we should pat ourselves on the back because we've already done that. Then, each body paragraph must have sufficient evidence to fully support that point or topic sentence. So look at this pie paragraph structure with me. And I think of pie because I love pie. So P is your point, it's your topic sentence. We've done it. Then you go into the information. It's observations, facts, statistics, examples, anecdotes, quotes, and other types of evidence. So whatever you said in your topic sentence, you've got to have some supporting details which evidence what you have put in there is your main idea and your viewpoint. And then next, you've got to be able to explain and or elaborate your information. You know, anybody can put a statistic or an example, but you've got to be able to put and explain the information that you have put in there. So this is basically your own thinking. So let's say that I gave a quote. All right, I then need to be able to explain that quote and what does it mean for my main idea and my topic sentence that I gave and the topic that I'm writing about overall. All right, it's where I explain. I want to see what you think. So let's see how I structured my body paragraph. So of course my topic's Greek mythology. Here again is my topic sentence. And so I put an I here for information. So as king of the Olympian gods, Zeus was well known as the god of the sky, which gave him supreme power over most other gods. Then again, I'm giving some more information. Yet even though Zeus was the king of gods, he was often the undignified victim of the plots of his wife Hera and other deities, and he asserted his authority through threats of violence. So I used a quote, and then I also used more or less an example or observation about the Olympian god Zeus, which is what I said in my topic sentence. Then beyond that, I go into explain, what does this information mean, okay? So I'm explaining my quote, and explaining the information and observation that I gave. For instance, Hera is known as the goddess of women and marriage, yet she was often vengeful against Zeus for his many episodes of infidelity. Many stories and teachings of Greek mythology came from the fits of jealousy between Zeus and Hera, including those of Hercules. So I know we've all heard of Hercules, and so this is a prime explanation of what I was trying to explain in my quote. And the last sentence of any body paragraph is the conclusion sentence. You've got to be able to signal to your reader that this main idea, its evidence, are going to conclude like you're done. All right, so I use a transition word such as all in all. And so here's my conclusion sentence. All in all, famous Olympian gods, such as Zeus and Hera, fulfill many of the stories and teachings of Greek mythology that have reached a worldwide audience. So let's see this break down in full and see our pie structure being used. And here it is, very colorful. So the blue is the point. This is my topic sentence, where you're never going to have more than one topic sentence inside of a body paragraph. Because remember, it's only one main idea and one viewpoint per that paragraph, okay? And so then I've got two pieces of information, two pieces where I explain, and then in black is my conclusion sentence. All right, so these are all the sentences that I've already done. So I want you to stop right here, and I want you to write your body paragraph. And students are responsible to use their point topic sentence that was recently written and continue writing their paragraph. Use the pie structure to incorporate information and further explain the information in the body paragraph. Last, do not forget the conclusion sentence of your body paragraph. You need to be able to submit this full body paragraph to my email for a grade no later than the due date. All right, so as we continue, and we're going to go into our conclusion paragraph, let's look at some more examples. And so here you might pause the recording so that you can read the paragraph and then get into the answers itself to see if you're accurate. And we're just practicing locating those topics and main idea. So even after the success of baby carriages in England, is A, B, C, or D? So if you guessed B, you were right on the mark. Good job. Let's look at one more example. So we can conclude from the information in this passage that A, B, C, or D. And if you guessed D, very good job. So for D, historically the principle of equality alone has not been enough to secure women equal rights. And so as you read through the paragraph, it should be evidenced with the details that they provide that through violent revolution, world war, and the rigors of pioneering in an undeveloped land, all of these pieces evidence that just having equality with men didn't necessarily secure women equal rights. It took these actions or these particular events for women to move up and request and start pushing for equality. All right, so let's get into our conclusion paragraph. So when you're writing a conclusion, there are three very, very important parts that you need to remember. One is that you need to go back to your introduction paragraph. Look at your grabber sentence that you've already written. And I want you to rewrite your grabber sentence using different words. So here I went back to my introduction. I pulled up my grabber sentence and I rephrased it. So I said Greek mythology explained ancient Greek's physical world through diverse stories and teachings. Next, you need to summarize your essay's point. What's the main idea in 2 to 3 sentences. Rephrase this point in a way that shows how and why it's important. Here's a hint. You might try restating the thesis with an emphasis on the main idea that you presented in your paper, because you only had one main idea, because we only have a 3-paragraph research report: intro, body paragraph, and then conclusion. So here's what I wrote. Such stories included that of Olympian gods, such as Zeus and Hera, which often fought feverishly amongst each other. These fights often went against the powers that they had and resulted in violence and revenge. And the last component of your research report conclusion is that you need to provide some type of final thought to the reader about your essay. And so I wrote, ultimately, the stories and teachings that resulted from many Greek gods were famous enough to continue to be known thousands of years later. So as we pulled all of that together, here is my entire conclusion paragraph. And so successfully and thus far, I've written my introduction with a really strong thesis statement. I've written my body paragraph with that very important point or topic sentence, my information, as well as I've explained and elaborated, and don't forget your conclusion sentence for that body paragraph. And here I've put the pieces together to successfully write my conclusion. So here you'll stop, and you further need to be able to write your rough draft conclusion and submit that by the due date.